My name is Daphne McFerrin, and I am the Executive Director of the Benjamin L. Hooks Institute for Social Change at the University of Memphis. Our mission is teaching, studying, and promoting civil rights and social change. And for over 25 years, we have engaged with the community through community outreach, programming, and scholarship of faculty to uplift Memphis communities. Today, we're going to look at the LGBTQIA plus community and the Black Lives Matter movement. I hope that those listening will learn that there's a complete embrace by the Black Lives Matter movement for all Black lives, which include the lives of our LGBT members. I encourage you to like the Hooks Institute by liking today our Facebook page. You can also join our mailing list by contacting us at bhi@memphis.edu. So I'd like to proceed with our program. First, I am thrilled to introduce our moderator, who is Dr. Andre Johnson, who is a professor here at the University of Memphis and joined us yesterday as a member of our staff as a scholar in residence. Dr. Johnson focuses on rhetoric and media studies in the Department of Communication and Fine Arts and also film. I'm also pleased to say that Dr. Johnson has been, along with his colleague, Amanda Neal Edgar, and a recipient of a grant from the Hooks Institute. That grant helped fund the research for their book, Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, which was the subject of a Facebook Live event several months ago. So we are thrilled to have Dr. Johnson aboard, not only to moderate today's program, but also to help facilitate, enlarge, and expand the Hooks Institute Civil Rights and Civic Engagement Program to the community. And on that note, I'd like to welcome Dr. Johnson as the moderator for this event. Thank you.
And good afternoon, and thank you, Daphne, for that warm introduction. And thank you for allowing me to be part of the Hooks team. I am so excited about being a scholar in residence. I'm excited about working and building and dreaming and visioning what the Hooks Institute can continue to do to build upon its foundations and to bring in just more of these type of programming and other things that we are scheduled to do. So I am so excited about this opportunity, and I thank all of the wonderful people at the Hooks Institute for making me feel so welcome and affirming the gifts and abilities that I bring to the table. And I am looking forward to working together and engaging the Memphis and indeed this entire community. We have today a wonderful program schedule. And what I want to do is just try to bring this into context. Then I will introduce our two special guests this afternoon. And after that, I will just pass it on to them. Created in 2012 by Alicia Garza, Opal Tometi, and Patrice Cullors, after the acquittal of George Zimmerman and becoming more pronounced during the events in Ferguson, BLM, or Black Lives Matter, grounds itself in the experiences of Black people who actively resist dehumanization. While definitions may vary by regional and local goals, BLM's national online platform defines the movement in terms of both policy and ideals, striving to highlight and dismantle anti-Black racism and white supremacy and the ways these systems target Black lives. As they elaborate, BLM, quote, is an affirmation of Black folks' humanity, their contributions to this society, and their resilience in the face of deadly oppression. For Julius Bailey and David J. Leonard, BLM is first and foremost a challenge to the affront of racial violence and prejudice policing. It is also a challenge to white privilege and supremacy, and it seeks to disrupt the status quo by forcing America to unflinchingly examine the ways in which state-sponsored agents treat Black Americans as, at best, second-class citizens. Further, they maintain that by spotlighting the persistent violence and through elucidating the fallacies, hypocrisies, and double standards that anchor white supremacy, BLM challenges the very foundations upon which Americans claim their democracy is built. And we are all created equal, that all are equally entitled to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. However, when we say Black Lives Matter, do we mean all Black Lives Matter? If we adhere to the policies and foundations of the movement, we would. BLM clearly states that, quote, we affirm the lives of Black queer and trans folk, disabled folk, undocumented folk, folk with records, women, and all Black lives along the gender spectrum. Our network centers on those who have been marginalized within Black liberation movements. And as rhetoric scholar Christopher House reminds us, this understanding comes at the very beginning of the movement. The intersectionality of the founders, Black gendered bodies, and for two of them, their self-identification as queer women, challenge the patriarchal culture and heteronormative gender roles of Black liberation movements. However, there are still some in the Black community who may question the lived reality of such statements. For instance, Billy Porter, the Emmy-winning star of the television show Pose, took to Instagram back in June to discuss the beating of Ayanna Dior, a Black trans woman in Minneapolis. Quote, LGBTQ plus Black folk are Black people too, he said. Our lives matter too. My basic human rights have been up for legislation every single day that I've had breath in my body from all sides. And by that, I mean that the Black community's relationship with the LGBTQ plus community is appalling at best and eerily similar to that of white supremacists versus Black folk. Now, according to that same Griot article, Porter criticized those in the Black community who have not prioritized the well-being of those who are not straight and cisgender. He equated them to white supremacists. Porter lamented that while Black people risk their lives every day they leave their homes, it's double for queer people of color. He continues, we move about our days, sucking it up, hiding our pain and terror from the world, trying to make ourselves small so white people and straight people feel comfortable. So what is the relationship between LGBTQIA community and the BLM movement? Here to discuss this are two people uniquely qualified to take up this task. First, allow me to introduce Gwendolyn Clemons. Gwen Clemons is the executive director of Relationship Unleashed, editor-in-chief of TUV Media firm, and 24-year veteran of the Shelby County Government. Gwendolyn is the founder of Unleash Your Vision, a behavior modification coaching business for lesbian couples. Gwendolyn is a sought-after public speaker and travels extensively, offering expert advice to improve the lives of Black LGBTQ community. Gwendolyn is the recipient of numerous national and local awards, and 2019 was her year. 2019, she won the Light of Hope Award by the Shelby County Health Department for Business of the Year. She also won the Tennessee Champion of Pride by the Advocate magazine. And then, if that wasn't enough, she also won Memphis LGBT Woman of the Year, all in 2019. And then Reverend Dr. Davin Clemons. Dr. Clemons is a public servant, civil rights activist, religious trailblazer, entrepreneur, award-winning community leader, and future politician. I like that. Dr. Clemons is Chief Operating Officer for the Cathedral Foundation, Assistant Executive Director of Relationship Unleashed, co-founder of Relationship Unleashed, co-owner of TUV Media firm, and an 18-year veteran of the Memphis Police Department. Dr. Clemons holds both master's and doctorate degrees in leadership and ministry from Memphis Theological Seminary right here in Memphis, Tennessee. Dr. Clemens was also selected for induction in the prestigious Martin Luther King Jr. College of Ministers and Laity at Morehouse College in 2020. And I am just honored and privileged to have both of them here. And we want you, I know you're following on Facebook. If you have any questions or comments, please direct them to our Facebook page in the comment section. And during the Q&A, we will try to get to as many as we possibly can. But without any further ado, the Clemens.
Oh my goodness, we're gonna take everywhere we go. I was like, who is that? We just want to say thank you, Dr. Johnson, for the gracious introduction into the Benjamin L. Hooks Institute of Social Change, Ms. McFerrin, University of Memphis, for even thinking of us today to lead this discussion.
Ditto to the words that my mother just spoke. We're honored, we're humble, and we thank you, and we're ready to do work on today.
You know, that was a great segue to lead us into this topic today about the LGBTQIA plus community and Black Lives Matter, and how all of these, how our collective efforts should be aligned, but they're really not. And a lot of things that you spoke about today was actually things that I was definitely going to touch on. And I'm so glad that you opened that up for discussion with Billy Porter and the incident that happened in Minnesota right around the George Floyd death. So I also, TUV Magazine also wrote an article that during that same time period, speaking out about all Black Lives Matter. And we received a lot of pushback in reference to hijacking or wanting to hijack the Black Lives Matter movement. And to those, I say, people that feel that way, you know, you'll be all right. So the main thing is to help people understand that not being a double minority, I'm a triple minority. So I am a Black woman, I'm Black, I'm a woman, and I'm queer. So I'm a triple minority, and I feel uniquely qualified to lead this discussion today. And you know, I pass this to Davin, and then we have a quick PowerPoint that we would just like to point some things out so people can and bring this home to understand the plight of being LGBTQ community and trying to navigate racism and homophobia from your own home community. Is that this is my stand. I am not an ally to the Black community, okay? I am not your ally. I am your sister in this fight. And we want to make that clear today.
And also, we have to remember within the LGBTQ plus community, we fight racism against our counterparts, our white LGBT sisters and brothers. In our Black community, we fight homophobia. And so within this BLM movement, the mission, in my opinion, we're transforming the conditions in our community. We're protecting the sanctity in our community. They have created space for us to lead. We no longer need people who don't love our community to lead us. We are the leaders in our community. And before we go into our PowerPoint, remember this, our allies, our sisters and brothers, silence is balance. You have to speak up now. It's no reason for us to be quiet in 2020. We've had 29 transgender deaths reported this year, and we have to speak up against any type of violence. We have to march against violence against our transgender sisters and brothers. So we are here today to affirm, to uplift, to speak, to be on the front line for our community, because at the end of the day, we're Black. And like my mother said, the most disrespected person in this community is the Black woman, in the words of our dear brother Malcolm X. So we have to protect our women and our transgender sisters and brothers, because I have privilege in the community. I'm not worried about being attacked when I'm out on the street, but our Black queer women and our transgender sisters and brothers, they have to worry about being attacked. So we can go into our PowerPoint. I don't want to prolong it, but we are the community.
Yeah, you know, we can't say it enough. Whenever you have incidents that happen in our Black community and protests take place, you have all of us out there marching. You have the trans women leading the march. You have Black women, Black gay women leading the march, Black gay men leading the march. And we're out there fighting for our community. And we demand the same when things happen in our community. We want the Black men to come out and march when a trans woman is killed. We want the same thing to happen when a trans man is killed. We want the same type of energy. We want this to take place, because when, none of us are free until all of us are free.
Yes.
So this time I'm gonna open up this PowerPoint and then we'll dive right in. Okay, here we go, share my screen. All right. Beautiful. So right here, what you see is the beautiful Lorraine Motel, Civil Rights Museum. And actually, we did this presentation for the Department of Justice this year, where we talked about the state of the Black LGBTQ community in Memphis, Tennessee. And this is historic, and it stands for the movement, the Civil Rights Movement. And fortunately for us, the Civil Rights Movement is right here in our city. And we all know the history of Memphis, the racial history. We know the religious history in the Bible Belt. So it's really significant for us to have this slide here.
And also, we can paint this picture. In 1963, we had a march in Washington, which was organized by a Black queer man, Bayou Rustin. And during that march, they were fighting for jobs and freedom. They drew attention to the challenges and the inequalities faced by Black folk. In 1968, when Dr. King was assassinated here in Memphis, Tennessee, they were fighting for economic justice for the sanitation workers, better work conditions, higher pay, a shower, a water hose for the sanitation workers. Right now, in 2020, we're marching and we're fighting for jobs, freedom, better pay, marching against police brutality, the same thing, the intersection for Black folk. So Black queer people have been here since the beginning. They have organized many marches, and we are still marching for the same thing. And that's how this ties together. We're in this fight together. They don't see gay, they see Black. So we're fighting for freedom, jobs, against police brutality. We're fighting for all those things just like our sisters and brothers. You go to the next slide.
And we live in Tennessee, wow, where our nickname is the Slate of Hate Bill, yeah. Where our senators and local, outside of West Tennessee, they pass bill after bill after bill disguised as religious freedom bill, when they're actually a discrimination, oppression, and mainly targeting the LGBTQ community. It's like they have an obsession with inflicting pain passed through legislative action against the LGBTQ community. And what we'll do, we'll just, Dr. Clemens is going to just speak on a few of these bills. We don't want to just park here. Feel free to look these up. They are available for public information.
Yes. So that's why, once again, it's important to vote. We have all of these white men in Nashville making these laws that are against Black and brown people. It's important for us to educate, empower, and enrich our people. And our great governor, he signed these laws into existence. So that's why it's important, again, to vote. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but I just hit the most important laws. But Bill 836, and like I said before, Governor Lee signed this law into law. And we are the first state to pass an anti-LGBT bill in 2020. And this bill right here allows licensed child welfare services and state contractors who are provided with taxpayer dollars and adoption foster care services to refuse child placement with qualified loving families if the family does not share all of the agency's religious benefits. So we're paying these agencies. If they don't see eye to eye with a man and a man adopting, or a woman and a woman, or whomever adopting, they can refuse it. And our great governor signed that law into existence. That's Bill 836. And also, a bill that affects our transgender sisters and brothers, Bill 2575, SB 2215. That is an anti-transgender medical care bill that will criminalize medical doctors providing life-saving and affirming care for transgender youth. And so the doctors are just trying to do their jobs. But our great leaders in Nashville have signed laws into play where these doctors have taken oath to uphold and save lives. But if they do these laws, do these surgeries or any type of medical, life-saving, affirming care to transgender sisters and brothers, they can be charged criminally. Bill 1572, it prohibits transgender students in playing sports inconsistent with their gender identity, forcing them to prove their gender identity by providing their birth certificate. So once again, these white men in Nashville, they're passing these bills, and we have to get more civically involved. We have to. We talk about reading is fundamental. Bill 2721. This bill prohibits libraries from providing pride and LGBT displays and programming. A library where we go and learn and read cannot have LGBT history and displays out in the open, because these great white men in Nashville are passing these laws that has legalized discrimination. This is the new Jim Crow. Also, the Bill 1369, this will be my last one here. This bill is trying to, this is a rollover bill from the 2019 Tennessee Natural Marriage Defense Act. They're trying to override marriage equality right here in the state of Tennessee. And so it is important for us to get involved. We have to read. This is a war we're in right now. We have a great president, Donald Trump, telling people to stand by, the Proud Boys to stand by. We have the Proud Boys in the House in Nashville passing bills. We have to get involved. We have to stay woke because our lives depend on it. And remember, silence is violence. If you don't say anything about these bills, you can't speak about anything. This hurts our Black and brown LGBT sisters and brothers. So please screenshot this, read at your leisure. You can inbox us. We can talk about this later more, but the Tennessee House of Representatives, our governor, they're passing the slate of hate bills right here in the great state of Tennessee.
And, you know, it's important that our Black community, not just our LGBTQ community, have written protests, have a direct response to these state-sanctioned violence. That's what it is. And it's a racial injustice. It's continued systemic injustice, and it's a form of oppressive violence aimed at a particular group in our community. And if they are able to conquer us, then who's next in line?
Yes.
So it's important, you know, that we continue to speak out and we continue to bring these things to the forefront and stay educated, as Dr. Clemens said, about what's going on right here in our own back door. So one thing that we also wanted to talk about, and you know, this is really, really personal to me, about faith in our own community. We have one of the biggest Black congregations that was founded here, started here, headquartered here, and it's a catalyst for permeating this type of thinking and promoting this type of thinking, and we believe breeding this type of thinking. That's my opinion, and I'll die with it because I was also a member of that organization, that religious organization. So as far as LGBTQ rights, the faith community is one of the biggest opponent in the Black community. They're used to help further marginalize and oppress the LGBTQ community. We had our great vice president, pun intended, in Memphis, Tennessee, and he went to a Black church, Mike Pence, when he was here, to court them. And we already know what Mike Pence's stance is regarding the LGBTQ community when he was the governor in his home state. So we have these types of this rhetoric that rolls over, and it's continued to create stigma. It continued to promote fear of the unknown, and it's all used as the disguise of that great King James Bible, you know, to keep and support their position to deny LGBTQ community access into the things that are afforded everybody else, their privilege.
And the only thing I have to say about that is, you individuals who she just spoke about, you don't own God. So until you realize that individuals who are struggling with your sexual identity and struggling with your faith and all those things, remember, they don't own God. God is in you. You are made in the image of God. You are God. So ditto to everything she said, but just remember that quote. They do not own God.
And we have, we're at a pivotal moment right now in 2020, and how it's going to shape the future for our kids and your grandkids and their grandkids, with the Supreme Court appointment that they're trying to push down our throat right now. It will fundamentally change how we live and go about our lives every day, and reproductive justice is right there on the forefront. If this conservative appointee is allowed to take Justice Ginsburg's seat, we will have things stripped from us that we used to enjoy, that was once a way of our life. It will totally shift our paradigm. And we just believe that it's past time, right, that the Black community address these things. It's past time that our community stop justifying the violence that they commit against LGBTQ people. You know, we're tired. We're tired of fighting this fight and standing up saying that, hey, you know, we're here. We're part of the community. And it's almost as if we're the stepchild. You know, we have to ask for permission to be gain access to the organizations, and it's past time out for that. And that's one of the reasons that we are one of the most vocal voices when it comes to things pertaining to the Black LGBTQ community, including all Black Lives Matter.
Yes, I agree with everything she said regarding that topic. And here we have a survey that is done by the Human Rights Campaign. They rate cities on their equality. And the great city of Memphis, we scored, the highest you can score is 100 points. We scored 48 out of 100. And so you can see the points by the titles. Our non-discrimination laws, 0 out of 30 points. We have the employers, 16 out of 28. We have the services here in our city, 5 out of 12. Law enforcement, 22 out of 22. Leadership on LGBT equality, 2 out of 8. And we have Fortune 500 companies here. We have a majority Black city council, majority Black county commissioner seats, but we scored this out of 100 points. Remember, silence is violence. You privileged individuals, you have to speak up at all times about all injustices. You cannot speak up only when things matter to you. Every Black and brown life matter. Every Black life matter. We have to speak up against these things. And it's a shame that we live in one of the largest cities in the state of Tennessee, one of the largest counties, the richest county in the state of Tennessee. And we're scoring not even half of 100, below half. And we have this going on, and the Human Rights Campaign is grading us based off this. And the world is looking at us, Memphis, Tennessee, and we have a lot of work to do.
You know, I'm not one of the smartest people in the class, but you know, if my math doesn't fail me today, I would think we have an F.
Yeah, we failed.
We failed with these things that we were graded on as part of the Equality Index, and so this is counting Memphis and Shelby County. This is comprised of what's going on in Memphis and Shelby County. And you made a great point, Dr. Clemens, bringing out about the Fortune 500. Because when we see in the month of June, when we have Pride and it's recognized all over the United States, you have all type of Pride paraphernalia out. Everybody is sending commercials and they're prideful, but only for 30 days. And we know that that's also a way to capitalize. It become a commercialized month now, you know, to continue to get your good dollars. Because if you don't know that the LGBTQ community is pumping over $1 trillion probably into businesses. So we are a commodity that they have to also market to. And it's time to get smart about where your dollars is going, who you're supporting, and who they're sending their money to further this agenda against us. Like if they're pumping their money into the 45 campaign, the 45 train. Do your research on these municipal businesses and where they stand. A lot of them have employee resource groups that say that they have diversity and inclusion groups, and they have these policies, but we want to make sure that these things are being done and that you also have resources out there where you can report them if they're not being done.
I totally agree. And it's also important to hold these businesses, make them accountable and stop them from exploiting Black and brown LGBT people. Like you said, we mentioned the month of Pride. We have businesses who will only sponsor white pride here in Memphis, Tennessee. They will not pour monies into the Black pride. And so it's important for us to speak up against these inequalities, these injustices, to let them know that we have Black queer people here in the city, and let them know that we want Black sponsorship here, Black sponsorship for Black pride. We want them to sponsor us. We want them to pour their dollars into us and don't just use us for experimental purposes in AIDS and HIV drugs. Use us for everything that you do. We are human. We are people. And so it's important to speak up about that, because silence, once again, is violence.
And you know, you made a great point, and you made me had an epiphany there. I thought about something, because I always say that we live in the tale of two cities in Memphis, Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Even the racial divide between Black and white, it also exists in the Black and white LGBTQ community.
No doubt.
Where even though we're LGBTQ, their white privilege affords them to access to much more than we have access to. So it's a tale of two cities in Memphis, Tennessee. It didn't just stop just because you're heterosexual. It exists right now. We have discrimination in the LGBTQ community between the white LGBTQ community and the Black LGBTQ community. Right now in 2020, we still have that, and we still haven't been able to quite bridge that gap to form unity. We're trying, but it's some things that got to get dismantled first.
Yes.
And you know, that brings us to the end of our presentation today, and I would like I'm going to exit out of my screen share, and hey, Dr. Johnson, we're ready to get this Q&A going.
Well, all right. Thank you for that presentation and the knowledge that was part of that presentation. I don't think people know just how many, you know, one of the things I wrote down when you talked about the laws and the bills, and I don't think people really know. Can you just speak a little bit more? We're going to get to the Q&A. We're going to get to, there are some questions from folk on Facebook, and please type in your question in the comment section and we will get to them. We do have time for Q&A, but can you just speak just a little bit more about the importance of knowing what's going on in Nashville, what's going on Capitol Hill, and are there any other bills or laws that we need to keep our eyes on?
So we have representatives, and I'm not going to call them names. I'm going to say the name. We have people in Nashville who have been on the Hill for many years, and they say they are the Democrats. My great mentor calls those individuals Dixiecrats. And so we have people who sit on the Hill, but they vote for the Republicans. They vote on those agendas, and they push those agendas, and they don't think about our people. So it's a lot going on the Hills. They're trying to push the the bathroom bill again, turn away bathroom bill again in Nashville. Our great governor, what's his name? I forgot his name.
Bill Lee?
Yeah, Bill Lee.
Okay.
Yeah, he is the leader in Nashville behind these bills. So it's so important for us to stay astute and become active and go on the Day of the Hills. We have organizations such as Sister Reach. They go down to the Day on the Hill and they get active and talk with the legislators. Go and meet with these people, because we have many legislators who have done their time, and it's time for them to pass the torch. And that's the issue I see in this city. We have people who sit in these political offices for many years and just sitting in the seat and doing nothing. And we need people who are going to work, get their hands dirty, and work with the community.
And yeah, that's a great point. They have the Black Folks Day on the Hill, and my good friend Cherie Scott of Sister Reach is very instrumental in organizing. She had a couple of buses going up there last year in the state capitol, talking to our elected officials, putting a face with LGBTQ community, because a lot of people really, you would not believe, haven't ever met a person that's LGBTQ that live in those rural counties. And I saw this week, the vociferousness and just the pure hate in that debate. And I put a quote up on the book and said, here lies one of the problems. We have people that are still in these offices in their 70s. And these men, cisgender white men, were probably part of the Jim Crow era. They were part of the civil rights era. And, and we're asking them, to change their mind and their ways to help us become part of the we the people, the promise of we the people, and we weren't part of the we the people when it was written. So, that's like, I'm sorry, we weren't. So and I think that's important. And it's important that, our interests, okay, some people might find this not sexy, it's not sexy, but this is not TikTok. You understand? This is your life. This is the life of your children. This is the things that they're going to be afforded for school, or just how they view the world when they get out in the world. And if we allow discrimination against one group of people, to stand and to get planted and rooted and grow, and the branches extend out, it's going to eventually touch all of our lives. We're on a cusp of something. I don't know what it is, but something is happening, in our world where, people do not want to give up their position. And, there's never been a popular social movement where the majority said, hey, y'all come on and be part of us, and we want to open the door and allow you access. No, those doors got kicked down. It always took the oppressed people to make social changes. In every century, every movement has come from a group that's been oppressed.
And to piggyback to your question, Dr. Johnson, I forgot about this law that we passed, and I agree with everything Gwen just said. They passed a law in Nashville where it is not mandatory for you to have a handgun license in the state of Tennessee anymore. You can travel with your gun in your car. Just think about that. Now I can carry a gun in the car. I get pulled over by police. If I'm a black man, I don't have a handgun permit. If you get caught with your gun walking from your house to your driveway, that's illegal. But if I get it in my car and put it in my trunk, I'm covered. But if I have it inside my car, I'm not covered. And so it's crazy laws like this. They have passed a law where if you flee from the police, you run from police, you have to pay restitution. And who do those laws affect? So that's why it's so important. They affect us, Black and brown people. It doesn't matter if you're LGBT, cisgender, queer, it affects Black and brown people. And that's why it's so important for us to stay involved and stay in our representative email and on their phone, asking questions when they vote on these laws.
Right. And let me ask this question. It goes to, and I think you already touched on it, about the age of some of these representatives. One of the questions on Facebook, for instance, was, it says, seems like older legislators are stuck in their ways and not open-minded to accept all, especially LGBTQ community. And so I see you nodding, and you probably will agree to some of that. But let me say this, let me ask this question. In light of that, if that is true, let's just say it is. If that's true, then what is, and the same question that people ask about BLM and about their activism as relates to the electoral situation about voting. How are young people, for instance, speaking of age, in the LGBTQ community, what are their perspectives on the electoral process about voting, registering to vote, and getting to the polls and supporting candidates that are at least aligned to their issues?
You're probably gonna get two opinions right now.
All right.
Pretty important. So I just want to say one word, well, two words for the first part of what you talked about the older men and not changing their position. They know what's true. It's called cognitive dissonance. Okay, that's what they're sitting on. No matter what we present to them, cognitive dissonance is what's holding them in that position or that mind frame that they think. So for me, you know, I'm older, a little older than David, and I have a different outlook and a different take about where our community line up and why these things are happening. You have to understand that outside of everyday issues that affect Black folks, you multiply that maybe 5 to 10 times. That's how much is exaggerated if you're Black and you're LGBTQ. The average lifespan for a trans woman is now around 35.
Wow.
The average income, right, is less than 15,000.
Yep.
So our trans sisters are a high murder rate, homeless rate, mental health rate, a lot of discrimination from showing up who they are, working, access to employment is improving. We have a lot of organizations that are primarily and intentionally focused to provide service to them. But you also have right now in our great city, we haven't been able to breach the top 10 in 20 years in new HIV diagnosis. We blowing the bottom out of 3. We're the highest in the South right now, one of the highest cities, not states, cities right here in Memphis, Tennessee. So our community is really fighting for survival. So the last thing that they're gonna think about is getting sexy and going to vote and mobilize. And now we do mobilize, but you gotta also be able to make sure that I can pay my bills and I can eat and that I can have some fundamental things and not worry about getting killed because I'm too feminine today, or I'm a woman and I'm too masculine. And then I gotta fight my Black brother because he don't like me because he think I wanna be a man.
But that's almost like a catch-22 then, right? Because you get into the one, you saying that, you know, we got all these issues and problems, and part of those issues and problems that can be solved is if we have folk that are sensitive to the needs in which I am speaking about, right? And so I need to help those people get into office so they can offer some sort of relief. But then the real life situations kick in. Is like, you're right, I got to go to work today. I would love to be at that protest, but you know,
and let me add,
I got to, you know, take care of my business here. You're wild. Okay.
Here's some caveat. You know, we have a nonprofit organization, too, a foundation and a nonprofit organization. This is the first time we've been able to bridge any type of funding. $50,000 this year, our first award, and we've been in existence 4 years. We can't even get money, win an award, a simple award to be able to provide service to get our community involved into civic activities and to educate them, empower, and enrich the community, and we would take care of ourselves. I'm gonna pass this to you, David. He ran for city council last year. So bring it on home, son.
Go ahead.
Well, the issue is, Malcolm X spoke about unity and harmony. He said, leave your religion at home. Don't bring your religion to the table, because we will never agree on religion. But if we talk about the Black nationalism piece, we're talking about how we can invest our monies in the community, how we can develop businesses and come together with unity and harmony, then we can progress and move the margin. But our people speaking about Black folk, we have had a lot. We have a lot of trauma, and we have a lot of work that needs to be done, and we are suffering big time. And so we have a lot of work to do. They've done a job on us, and so we as Black people, despite your LGBT or cisgender, we have to stick together. If we don't stick together, it's not going to work because they don't want to give up their power. They have a lot of power and they don't want to give that up. But if we have power as well, but we have to learn to stick together and work together. That's why Harriet Tubman carried her gun, because the Black folks don't want to stick together and work. She didn't carry the gun to shoot animals. She carried the gun to get them Negroes who was messing up the Underground Railroad, who did not want to follow her. She had to turn around and get rid of them because they were going to jeopardize the freedom of all the people. So we have to learn how to stick together, no matter what, deal with the people who don't want to stick together, but we got to work together overall as a community to make this thing happen.
And those are some serious discourses that are in that stop that from happening. Discourses, like you said, of religion, discourses of my own belief systems, my own phobias. All of those discourses kind of floating out there. Let me just get back. I'm gonna get back to some of the questions that people are asking. One question here is that we talked about Memphis and we know about the issues that are in Memphis. However, are there any cities that Memphis and other cities can learn from or model that are doing good work? And, you know, or that whole thing called best practices, right? So are there any cities that we can look toward, that we can get some sort of, I see you nodding of the head, so I'm gonna let you take it on.
I'm the bobblehead. And there's one, right, that we love to go to, maybe 300-400 miles, Atlanta, Georgia.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Mayor Keisha Bottom is creating a masterpiece of success for how to bring in the LGBTQ community into her cabinet and make sure, right, that they are included, their voices heard, they have a seat at the table. Because any type of policy change, anything that go out is going to affect this community. And it's important that representation matters. Mm-hmm. And like you said, Dr. Johnson, success leaves clues. So Memphis do not have to reinvent the wheel. You know, the city of Memphis just established like their diversity and inclusion division. And Dr. Clemens is a liaison and he works on one of those departments. Shelby County does not. And we have a city council that's majority African-American and a county commissioner that's majority African-American and an African-American mayor. Come on now. So these issues exist. It's not as if they're not privileged to this information or that this voting sector or this community is not here because they court us during election season, right? So where's the representation? Where is the representation sitting in a position on our county or city government that say LGBTQ, diversity and inclusion, director, executive committee, right here. LGBTQ Department of Equality, non-existence. Look at Atlanta, Georgia. Keisha Bottom is painting a masterpiece, not only just the LGBTQ community, but how she has went in and make sure that she gutted what was happening and rebuilt it.
Wow.
Well, also, you can look down the street in Nashville. Matter of fact, you can look across the bridge in West Memphis at the casino, or you can look down the street in Mississippi. These places have taken billions of dollars from Memphis, Tennessee, and put them in their community. And those dollars were blocked solely because of religious people sitting at the table in the mayor's ear, those hypocrites, and they let them influence them on losing those monies. Certain aspects, and matter of fact, with city government business, religion should not come to the table, period. This is about business, economic growth, equity for all. Let's talk about business. Leave religion at home. And that's the problem here in Memphis. Every time an issue occurs or a decision has to be made, a major decision, we have religious leaders at the table. We don't need those people at the table. We need business experts at the table, Black and brown people who are working, having the city moving. Those people need to be at the table having to make those decisions. And that's one of the issues here in Memphis, Tennessee that I see.
Another question about the divide in the LGBTQ community between whites and Blacks. What are the plans for closing that divide? Or are there some some plans or initiatives in the works right now that we may not know of, that has as its aim closing some of that divide?
In my opinion, you have to call those people out. And you have to, because they may not know that they're racist, but you have to call them out and let them know, hey, look, your white privilege has allowed you to get these resources, these monies, and these spaces, and look at us over here. We have the same talents, we have the same so on and so on, but we can't get it solely because of our race. And you have to call them out to the table and have these hard discussions, because race matters in America, it matters in Memphis, and we, as people, we cannot have those hard discussions, and we have to have those hard discussions with our white LGBT sisters and brothers and the business community to show them that the Black community has been neglected.
The only effort that I know of, Dr. Johnson, is doing Pride.
Right.
In Memphis, we have Tri-State Black Pride, which is led by the Cathedral Foundation, founded by Dr. Clemens. And then you have Miss South Pride. And right now, I think they just wrapped up Miss South Pride. That's ran by, it's known as the Black Pride and the White Pride. Kind of like when I was coming up, we had the Cotton Carnival.
Black Cotton White.
You had the Black Fair and you had the White.
Yep.
My age now, right? Am I lying?
Sure did.
Okay, so we have the same thing that's going on here. And it's the reason that we have the separation, because Black Pride been in existence for 25 years. In Memphis, Tennessee. And it started because they did not have representation when they threw the Miss Out Pride. And with the parades and take over downtown, the confettis, it's all sexy with the big Fortune 500 pumping money in. And it's as if there's no Black LGBTQ people. And then you go and they play honky-tonk music all day. Culturally, we're different. So you got to let us take part in the decision making, and it wasn't done. So Terrell Buckner created his own table. And in 2017, he decided that he, had a long run, and it came into our hand. And this year in 2020 was the first time we collectively worked together in a way that we showed up at their event. We did a video. They came to ours, and we're like slowly trying to merge the two. But what the biggest barrier is, Doc, if you really want to know the truth, that green dollar.
Oh.
Nobody wants to give up their green dollars. And we have had a major Fortune 500 company flat out tell us, we're not supporting y'all. Our money is going to them. But their employee base is probably 70 to 80% African-American. That's who is there keeping their economy going, their ecosystem, because they have an ecosystem right here in Memphis. I don't have to tell who it is, because I'm sure you picked that up when I said ecosystem. So they, these are the challenges that we have to go through. We have to be triple time better than these individuals to show what we're doing with our money. We do AIDS and HIV education. We run an educational symposium to try to educate our community to stop the new infection rates, and that's kind of like important. With COVID-19 coming in, the community being decimated. And that issue, HIV and AIDS, is being pushed aside because COVID-19 has taken precedence. But those new diagnoses have not stopped. And we have a large population of our Black women being newly diagnosed in Memphis, Tennessee. So we have to understand that until we get some economic power, that's your favorite word, Doc. Clemens, I'm surprised you didn't get this. We're kind of handicapped and limited with what we can do. They have a showing of 20,000 people to fill up their events. We may have 3, to come out and mobilize and to help us get our agenda out front and the word out front to let people know, hey, we here and we doing this work and we need y'all help. We can't do it without the community.
Well, let me try to get a couple of more questions in. We are getting close to our time. Let me see if I can merge some of them together. There was one question I think we've kind of touched on, talking about in the LGBTQ community, white is the default. And then the question is in what ways we can change that. I think we talked a little bit about that. But here are two questions, Reverend, that's religion based or religious based. Let me see here. Let me see if I can merge them together. One of them said, I recently read an article that stated that the South has the most LGBTQ residents in the United States, Bible Belt. LGBTQ people in the South continue to face obstacles at higher rates than the rest of the country. And then another question is there really no room for religious leaders to be engaged? MICA, the Memphis Interfaith Coalition, Action and Hope could be a place to find some level of leader engagement. So I want to try to put both of them together. You got the Bible Belt, you got many churches, you got many preachers, you got many places of worship, institutional worship centers, and we have the largest, groups of LGBTQ people, but they are being affected by these elements that we have already, economics, health, and a whole host of other things. So how can we bring that together? And you got 1 minute.
If you're not an inclusive pastor, you cannot have a seat at this table, because everybody in the city pays taxes. The city is for everyone. So if you're not for everyone, how can you come to a table and speak on everyone's behalf? And to that other one in the South, the South accounts for 44% of HIV and AIDS. Matter of fact, we have the most viewed gay porn watched in the South. Hello. So all I got to say is this. We have more heterosexual people in the South than gay folks in the South. So somebody watching some porn. And Mississippi is the #1 state for the most viewed gay porn in the United States. So somebody watching some gay porn. So my point is this. If you don't accept everybody, you cannot have a seat at this table, point blank. And that's how the mayor should run it, and whomever else in charge when making decisions about all people.
Yeah, because
if you don't discriminate, I'm over it.
We're tired of these people showing up for photo ops. We're tired of it. And you're right. You're absolutely right. The South does have the highest concentration. And believe it or not, our great state of Mississippi, our sister state, has one of the highest rates of adoption for LGBTQ community, LGBTQ children, right in Mississippi. So, and it's highly concentrated right here in the Bible Belt. And we do have to bridge that gap between spirituality and your sexuality. We fight that every day, even though we have an affirming, inclusive church sitting on Southern Avenue, been there since 2012. We still fight that within our own community because of the damage and the adverse childhood experience they've had related to being LGBTQ. Also, the high suicide for our youth, LGBTQ youth, is right here in the South.
Well, you know what? That sounds like we need to have another one of these conversations where we really talk about religion and spirituality as it relates to the LGBTQIA community.
Yes.
I believe that is our time. We still got a couple of more questions. I'm sorry if I didn't get to everybody's question, but this has been a great conversation. I hope that it will spur more conversation. This will be on our Facebook page, the Benjamin L. Hooks Facebook page. It will also be up on the YouTube page as well, too, so you can watch this at any time at your leisure. And I do encourage churches, religious institutions, and other spaces and places to use this as a teaching tool. Begin to have those conversations in your churches and in your spaces and places as well, too. So for the Hooks Institute, for our director, Daphne McFerrin, and the wonderful people associated with the Hooks Institute, we want to thank the Clemons, Gwendolyn Clemens and the Reverend Dr. Davin Clemons, for being here. And you, my friend, he was my student. So he was a good student. And I knew, like, I'm going to be like one of them old preachers and teachers. I knew, boy, you were going to be something. I knew it. I just knew it. See you next time.